Hello friends, Liz Taylor reporting live with partially wet hair, no makeup. Just show up. Doesn't matter if it's perfect. I have the phone balanced on an elaborate rig of day planners and books on the back of my couch, and I'm being lit by my window. So, behind the scenes inside scoop. Today we are going to do a book review on Gabrielle Bernstein's May Cause Miracles. It's a wonderful book, and it's a very practical tool if you need to make intense, extreme change very, very quickly. So let's unpack that. This year has been insane, and I think that we're all just getting tired of reiterating that and observing that fact. These are unprecedented times, in case you didn't hear. And a lot of this extreme conditions and these extreme circumstances have kind of stirred things up that were maybe stable for us, and even so stable that they were becoming stagnant. And when that kind of chaos shows up, it is a sign that something within you, within your soul, is really being called forth towards growth and change and evolution. And so if you are feeling very uncomfortable and very unhappy, this is a sign that change is imminent, that your soul is ready. It's like it's wanting to push past the current vessel that it has, and it wants to expand that vessel. If you are feeling super comfortable and you've been feeling that way for a while, then you may want to do some proactive soul searching and asking where you should be growing, because the universe will send you a challenge to get you out of that comfort. We don't really stay in a stable, comfortable zone for too long before our energy begins to stagnate and we plateau and we need to grow again. So we're always growing, rinse and repeat. The sooner we can get used to it and accept it, the better we can value the lessons that are happening and really embody them and move through them and grow stronger. And maybe the less extreme our circumstances start to be. So when I found this book, May Cause Miracles by Gabrielle Bernstein, it was several years ago, and I would say that for a couple of years up until I found that book, I had some awareness that my thoughts were having an effect on my outer life, and that I needed to do something to change my energy and my vibration so that I would attract better circumstances. At this point, excuse me, I belch when I do these videos. I don't know, the spirit's moving me. I don't just get used to it. So I'll back up a little bit. Around the time of 2012, I was in the climax of probably on the verge of a nervous breakdown. My mind and my inner landscape were so chaotic and in so much turmoil that I was just triggered so easily. I was so frazzled and at the end of my rope, and I was enraged all the time and just bitter and angry. And it wasn't because I had any sort of wild destructive behavior. You know, sometimes people are going through the kinds of things that you're oh, well, yeah, clearly this is what's causing the suffering in your life, and if you can change that, then it'll probably change a lot of things. Well, for others of us, it's not as obvious, and it's sort of a combination of a lot of factors. And really what it ends up boiling down to is that we have to get to the root cause of that chaos and do what we can at a root level to change it. And so by the chance of a miracle, somebody that worked with me at the time had, we were all sort of going insane together. This was many years ago when I was starting to freelance in production, but I wasn't full-time freelancer yet, so I still had to keep a side job at a restaurant. And we worked downtown on Lower Broadway at a brewery, and pretty much if you come in contact with someone who works on Lower Broadway, they are 2 shades from a straitjacket because it is so intense and awful to work down there. So we all worked there. We were all going insane all the time. We were all totally exhausted, and we were all just like frazzled and losing our minds and just getting more and more depressed and distressed and chaotic and desperate. So, we joke around a lot to keep us going, but it was just really covering up a lot of tension and a lot of anxiety and a lot of suffering for a lot of people. But one of the girls that I was friends with at work came in, and she just seemed like she had just, the sun had come out of nuclear winter, and she had stepped into that sunshine, and she was radiating, and she came into work and she was all happy. She was like, guys, like, everything has changed. Like, my whole mindset has turned around, and this is what happened. And she told us that she had watched The Secret. And at this point, The Secret had already been out for a long time, but not as many people knew about it, or at least not in Nashville. Maybe it was like a big thing in other bigger cities, but we're kind of like the last ones to, there's not a lot of metaphysical people here. There's just enough. So I was like, what is this? Like, and unfortunately it was available on, I believe, YouTube was where I found it to watch it. So I watched this movie, and basically it was like teaching you the foundations and the basics. It didn't cover everything. It wasn't like fully encapsulating all the laws of the universe, but it focused on one in particular, which gave you a foundation to understand that your perceptions and expectations are actually affecting your reality. We are made of energy. We are vibrating energy. I mean, that is true atomically. And we vibrate at a certain resonance, and that resonance attracts resonance that is like that. So our energy is like a wave, and so we attract waves that are, I can't do it, but like that are the same, that resonate. If you're like this, you're not gonna like jam with this, so it's gonna cause dissonance. So you will attract to energy and experiences and people that match your vibration. So if you're like enraged and just pissed off all the time and thinking like, oh, everybody sucks, everybody's a terrible driver, like, you're going to attract things that are matching that vibration and that reinforce that perception and that, are matching that attitude. It's as if your thoughts, feelings, your words, and like everything, all those things about you make sort of like a soup, and that is what your vibration is. It's like your flavor, your energetic flavor. So it has to do with the way you feel, the thoughts that are in your mind, the things that you envision in your mind. And like, how when we can get off on a tangent where like we're in our mind in an argument with someone and it's like been 30 minutes and like that kind of conversation never even happened. It's like completely hypothetical and we're all like worked up about it. Like, I'm talking about like that kind of stuff, like with what you're like thinking about all the time, how you feel, what you desire. Sometimes what you desire is not as obvious as you think it is. Like, for instance, if you are, this is an easy example to explain. If you're looking for a romantic partner and on the surface you want a great, committed, loving partner who's going to stand by you and be faithful, and you're gonna, go all in and maybe even get married or whatever, but in your subconscious you have commitment issues, or you are afraid to open up to love someone fully because you're afraid that the worst is going to happen, that they're going to reject you, and you're afraid of that rejection. So you have like this subconscious wall that protects you. Then you will continuously attract people who are not committed, that might behave as though they are, but they don't really follow through on it. So you might keep getting players, or you might get like really nice guys that seem like something's going to go somewhere, but they just sort of like keep you in that like in between limbo of like, are we or aren't we, like, what are we really doing here kind of thing. And in your mind you're like, this isn't fair, like, I'm a good person, I'm a good partner, like, I want these things, like, why is this happening? And it's because on a subconscious level there are shadow aspects and wounds that you have not yet become conscious of or addressed that are still perpetuating your belief that if you open up to someone that you will be hurt and that it's not going to go well. And so what you're really putting out there is that I need someone who's safe, that, is not we're not going to get in an intimate relationship, so I can't get hurt. So even though you think that you're asking the universe for a committed partner, your vibration is asking the universe for something surface level that's safe for you. So when we're vibrating, whatever we're stating out loud, whatever we keep reinforcing, that is like putting in an order to the universe. It's like, imagine that the universe, like there's this like intricate intelligent network and matrix that is always kind of like working and moving parts and stuff. And let's pretend that it is a waitress at a diner, and every time you're like saying things or vibrating things very like poignantly, you are putting in an order to the universe, and it will deliver what you want every time without fail. If you keep saying, oh, I'm sick, like I'm always sick, or like I'm always fat, or like I'm broke. Oh, that's a good one. I'm broke. You're gonna keep being broke, or you're gonna get sick, or like if you're the kind of person who expects people to be shitty drivers, you're probably gonna have bad experiences on the road where people are gonna be like almost like running you off the road all the time. Because what you expect and what you believe and what you keep projecting out into the world will come to you very, very easily. And so have you ever like made a joke like, oh, wouldn't it be hilarious if like this happened, or wouldn't it be great if that happened, and you just like laugh it off, and then sure enough, like not too long later, like maybe like I don't know what that language was, it was not proper English, but not too much longer later, that thing will show up and you're like, whoa, how did this happen? Like we were just joking around about that. Well, that is because you put something out into the universe. You had this light energy about it, and you were just like, oh, you know, your vibration was really like high and joking around about it. And then all of a sudden it happened because there wasn't a part of you in your mind that was like, that could never happen. Like, I don't believe that. It's not going to be that easy. Like, when we want something so much, a lot of times we have doubts about it, or we don't have the 100% faith to believe that like everything could just work out as easily as we hope it could. So we create resistance, and that might, you know, be something that we're aware that we're doing, or it might be something that we're completely unaware that we're doing. There's also an issue of when we are deeply attached to something and need something really badly, it also repels something away. But the energy of feeling like whole and complete, like the thing is already here, that we already have it, it just needs to show up, and we're just waiting patiently for it to reveal itself, like that is more attractive. So needy and controlling repels, and letting something go and surrendering and just knowing that it's already yours, it's already an escrow, you just have to wait for it to arrive in the mail. Like that is what attracts something. So it's like best to have like this light detached energy, and then just sort of release it to the care of, you know, the creator, and know that everything's going to be okay. And that is sort of like the interworkings of like the machinery of faith, like how that works. It's like you're certain, you're comfortable, you're relaxed. If you are like white knuckled grip, then you're not certain, and you're not in faith that everything's going to work out. So, and then you're causing resistance, and then it probably is going to delay or create blockages. So getting back to the original train of thought that I was on. So if you found that this year has culminated into some sort of pentacle of challenge where you're like, oh my God, like everything in my life is just like the towers are crashing all around me, there's chaos going on, and I can't go on the way that I am any longer, and I need to change quick. Like the last half of this whole year has had a lot of very poignant astrological aspects and movements. I can't even begin to go into talking about them all, but just take my word for it, or like do some research on your own, particularly the last half of this year. And the planets are arranging themselves and moving in aspects in such ways that like a couple of the things haven't happened since like the 1400s. So it's almost as if like it feels like nothing has allowed us to move forward the way that we've wanted to for maybe even several years now. And by the end of this year, there's going to be such a shift where there's going to be potential for everything to like shoot forward, and like 100 years worth of progress is just suddenly going to be like, oh, okay, so here it is. And that's going to be the way it is in the world at large, but also like on a personal level. So whereas, you know, you might have felt like held back in some way in your life, like maybe a bunch of the areas of your life are great, but there's like one thing that just like you can't get any progress in. Like that's what I'm talking about. It's like all of a sudden you'll make up for like all that time, and it'll just be like shooting off like a rocket. The energy and the way that things are moving is very revolutionary. So extreme and like sort of like extreme and very thorough and like overarching change is happening. It's like everything's changing, but it has the potential to change for the better and for the good, for you and for everybody else. So, two people just rode by on a tandem bike. So if you want to jump in on that change and take, you know, your fate and your destiny into your own hands and actually participate in it on purpose and like make a lot of progress and a lot of change very fast, I would tell you that this book, May Cause Miracles by Gabrielle Bernstein, is a very, very effective way to do that. When I found this book, it changed me almost as soon as I started reading the first page. Like when you put yourself out there to the universe and you're like, okay, there's these things that I want to change and I want to grow. Immediately, events will start happening and transpiring for you to meet these moments, almost like quizzes and tests and assignments and challenges, for you to react in a different way than you have been. So this book, what it basically does is it helps you become aware of your ego and all the tricks that the ego plays on you, and it reveals it to you in such a way that you're like, oh my God, like I have lived so far at the mercy of my thoughts that are coming at me day and night, and it is a miracle that we don't all kill each other like the moment we leave the house. Your whole reality is flavored and shaped by the way that you perceive it, by the way that you understand other people, and by the way that you're reacting and interacting with people all the time. So most people go around taking everything personally. And most of the time, nothing is personal towards you at all. We're all like in here, like battling our demons day and night. And we're just trying to like get by and survive. We're in survival mode like all the time. And so when we can begin to slow down and observe these thoughts and think about them in a different way, or at least choose to be willing to, the way that your life plays out begins to change. Because if you're under this certain perception and this certain energy all the time, like that's going to affect the way that you're reacting to other people. That's going to affect the way your kind of whole life starts playing out. It's like a domino effect. Imagine if you're in the car and you're very peaceful and you're enjoying a beautiful day and you're in the passenger seat and you're riding in the car with someone who has like complete road rage. Like you can see how the perception is totally different. Like maybe you're not being run off the road or anything, but maybe they're just like watching all the cars ahead going like, oh, look at that crazy nut and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I'm like looking at like what's relevant to us right now, here and now. And I'm just having a calm time. So that person is having a different perception of the same experience that you are, right? So that's just one small metaphor of how, we can be out living in the world and somebody at work can, like, I don't know, make a face because they're just tired and they have resting bitch face. But like someone else could be like, oh, that person, they're always giving me the stank look and they're such a bitch. And like, I can't believe, like, what's their problem with me? And maybe that person has zero problem with them at all. They have no idea that, like, people are going around now, everybody at the office thinks they've got a bad attitude because they got a tired resting bitch face. And so, you start to see how, like, all these things really have an effect on your life. So this book basically is divided into, like, sort of the major categories of your life. Your relationship to others, your relationship to money, your relationship to your health, and, things like that. And it gives you an exercise every day where you have, like, a morning reading, and then you have, like, an affirmation that you check in with, like, hourly during the day. And it helps you become aware of the kind of internal dialogue that's in your mind. And when you're aware of it, you're like, whoa, that's fucked. I should change that. I can change it. And before you know it, it's like, oh, wow, I am not at the mercy of my thoughts at all. I actually have control over, like, what is running through my mind all day, every day. I have control over how I perceive things, how I interpret things, how I react to other people. You start taking people less personally, and you actually start to have more, insight and awareness about where they might really be coming from. It gives you a lot more patience. It gives you a lot more compassion. It gives you a lot less anger and a lot less anxiety. So it's an amazing shift that can happen, like I said, like immediately. Like as soon as you start with the first lesson that day, you will start being like, oh, this is what this lesson is talking about. Like that is coming up right now and I'm seeing it. And then once you see it, you can actually look a little bit deeper into it. You can be like, well, why would I think that? Like, where did that start to happen? Like, where did I get that idea that it's definitely this way? Like, why do I think that that's the absolute gospel truth? Like, so it's very, very good. So when you start to understand the tricks of your ego, that's when you can start to live out of the grips of it, and you can actually practice self-control of your own mind, and you can, choose the kind of inner landscape that you want to cultivate within yourself. Now, for me, I read this book probably 3 or 4 times in a row. Like I read it over and over and over again one year, and I can't tell you like what a difference it made. And honestly, like you could go back anytime and do a refresher, but it's 40 days long, and the kind of change that you will like benefit from in 40 days, it's so liberating. It makes you feel so much better. And when you look back, you're like, oh my God, I was so like, I was suffering so much. Like I was so unhappy. Like I was tormented. And it's like you break free, and you're finally able to start, having like a lighthearted spirit. Or, just an easier way of experiencing life. And then you start attracting better experiences, and you start attracting better interactions with people, better circumstances, and you raise your vibration and your life raises with you. I would suggest to do this book more than once. I could actually use it again, like right now. Like maybe I should start reading it again. I will say this, her, Gabrielle Bernstein's teaching style and like the core of her teaching comes from A Course in Miracles, which I've been doing that book this year. And it's basically like 365 lessons, one each day, where you read it. And it's sort of like works in this, like this way to sort of change your perception. And it's about like, it's hard to just tell someone about the book without having to go into a deep, lengthy explanation, but basically it helps you identify your ego, and it gives you a redeemed perception of a Christ-like consciousness of life. So it's like a Judeo-Christian metaphysical text, but it can be universal. Like anybody could read it and benefit from it. yeah, so I highly recommend that book, May Cause Miracles. A Course in Miracles is a little bit bigger commitment because it's like every day for a year. And the whole book, I'll show you. The whole book is like this thick, but it's separated into sections. So there's like the text, which explains like what it is that they're talking about. Like they talk about forgiveness a lot and miracles and redemption, but it's not necessarily like the way that you're used to hearing about it. Like it's a more sort of a mystical and also practical at the same time explanation of like what is happening and what it is and what its function is. And then there's like a section of the workbook for the students, and that's like the exercises that you do on a daily basis that sort of shift the way that you're perceiving the world around you. And then this is a combined volume, so it actually includes the manual for the teacher if you want to teach this course and clarification of terms and all that. So this is get it started January 1st or whenever. But for me, I kept meaning to read this book, and then one day it just sort of proverbially fell off a shelf like it does for many people. I was really wanting to read it, and I kept wanting to buy it, but I didn't see it anywhere. And then one time I think I did see it at Books A Million, but just didn't feel like the right time. And so this past December, I remember at work at the time there was like a whiteboard, and it had like this one department of our crew on the show. The set deck had like written, everybody had written their Christmas wish, and so I was like, well, I'm going to join in on this. So I wrote that I wanted something magical to happen over Christmas break. Well, Tori and I went down to Louisiana to visit his family, who's from Thibodeau. And we always try to stop off in New Orleans to like have like a little couple of day vacay there and eat and drink and be merry and all that. And so we had just left his parents' house, and we were like, we couldn't check into our hotel yet in New Orleans. So we were just like gonna grab some coffee and walk around this little area that he really liked. And he wanted to show me this coffee shop and this like, you know, little strip of like, you know, bookstores and vintage stores and all that stuff. So we grabbed our coffee and we decided to go walk around, and we passed this used bookstore that actually had a coffee table book in the window that we had talked about getting, and it was Drag Brunch by Poppy Tucker, and it had all these like gorgeous portraits of drag queens, and then also like really great brunch recipes in this like hardback coffee table book kind of thing. And somebody had just recently recommended it to us. We're like, oh, we should get that. So we saw it in the window. We're like, oh my God, they have the book. So we went in there, we bought that book. And before we checked out, I told Tori, I was like, before we pay for this, I just want to like see if they have sort of like a spirituality or magic section or whatever, and see if they have any good books. And I asked the girl at the counter, I was like, do you guys have a magic section? And she was like she didn't know what that was. And I was like a metaphysical, you know, like spiritual. And she was like, oh yeah, it's behind you. So I went over there, and the first thing that I saw on the shelf was this book. And I was like, oh my God. And I saw that it was a combined volume and all this stuff. And I was like, this is the time. This is when I buy it. And so I went and took it to the cash register, and the girl was like, wow, that stayed on the shelf for all of 30 seconds. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, when you were asking me where that section was, my protege was behind you putting it on the shelf. Like she literally put it on the shelf. You walked over, and that was the first thing that you grabbed. So that's what I mean by like, it just fell off the shelf. But I will say that this is an amazing way to introduce yourself to these concepts. She's very contemporary. She just talks to you like a regular person. That book kind of has this like odd, like sort of biblical Old English sort of like dictation. I don't know. It's got this weird, I can't think of the word right now. Cadence is what I was gonna say. It's always like, this soul but can blah blah blah, and you're like, why can't you just like spit it out and say it straightforward? It's like but I think it's like mind numbing for a reason. I think it's trying to like bypass your like whatever and like get into the subconscious. But so anyway, a great book to start off with. It really does introduce you into a lot of spiritual concepts. It's good for people who are already on the journey. It's good for people who are just starting out. But if you need like emergency spiritual triage and you need to change like yesterday and you're like, I need something like quick. I need something that is going to make immediate change in my life, and I need it to be like deep and prevalent change, and I need to like feel the difference like so fast. May Cause Miracles. 40 day guidebook of subtle shifts for radical change and unlimited happiness. And that's what it is. All right. I've rattled on for like 30 minutes. I didn't think, whenever I sit down to do these videos, at first I'm like, oh, I don't have anything to say. And then I talk for like 30 minutes. I think it would be harder for me to just do like a 5 or 8 minute video. Maybe that's what I need to try to do, but I don't know. Sometimes when I sit down and watch a 5 to 8 minute video, I'm like, I kind of crave more. I want them to go deeper. And then it's like, well, maybe next time we'll talk about this. And it's like, well, I don't want to talk about it now. All right. Thank you. See you later. Share this with a friend. Ooh, yes, let's do all that. I always forget to tell y'all like all the things that you should do. I've never been a very pushy salesperson. It's just not in my nature. I'm like, oh, they'll do it if they want to. But I would love for you to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please comment. The more interaction that people that are like putting out videos get, the more that their videos end up in the search engine so that other people can find them. And if like there's no interaction in a video, then you kind of get buried and like nobody ever sees it. So it really like it's a huge way to help people and just say like, hey, thanks, I got something out of this video, or I'm just feeling generous, and all you have to do is like click the button. I can't believe like how many people are so stingy with their likes out there. Like it never like fails to shock me. I talk to people all the time that are like, oh, I never like anything. And I'm like, why not? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I just don't like to participate. And I'm like, but it could make like all the difference in someone's life. Or like a lot of people are like, well, I don't want people to see what I'm doing. And I'm like, get over yourself. Nobody cares what you're doing. People are so wrapped up in their own world. Like nobody's fucking watching you. Anyway, so fucking like my video. Fucking share it with your friends. Fucking subscribe. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Bye.